Brad McIntyre, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing really well.
Doing well. Thank you for taking time out of the harvest and whatnot. I was just telling you that, or actually I was telling Steve Stauber, and I'm getting into telling you, there's this romantic vision of farming that the American culture has. Do you remember that movie, you sci-fi guy? I really like sci-fi.
I don't.
Come on, Brad.
Maybe I've seen it, but ask my wife.
Aliens. You remember the movie Aliens?
I never watched it.
God, what's wrong with you? There's that classic scene. They go into cryo sleep to like get to this planet, and it's Sigourney Weaver with a bunch of space marines, and they're all in cryo sleep. When they wake up out of cryo sleep, everybody's waking up like, oh, like whatever sci-fi. And the drill sergeant or whoever was. Wakes up, he's like, oh, sticks a cigar in his mouth. He gets up and he's like, wake up, sunshine, here we go. He's like, day in the Corps is like a day on the farm. And he goes into this, he's like, every meal is a banquet, every paycheck a fortune. I love the Corps, right? And he's going into it. And I've heard that sentiment that it's like, it's just the farm life is it. Like you get these gigantic rewards and maybe it is like that. You could tell me, but it also seems, even if it is like that, it also seems like just this inherently human, messy experience where it's never ending. And it's a job, it's a profession, it's an investment, but it's just without sounding too cliche, it's like, it's just a lifestyle.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle. I get that. It's not, uncommon to get the call and say like, man, I just want to farm. I just want to get my kids to farm. I just want to be a farmer.
You gotta hear that and be like, oh my God.
And it's an amazing way of life to raise a family. I can't deny that. And it comes really down to hard work. You really teach hard work. You teach going through difficult things. They get to see death, right in person with animals. They get to experience, crop failures and all these hard things. And they get to see a lot of wins. I wish it was just bagfuls of money coming.
Yeah, don't we all?
Coming in. If it was, everyone would be doing it, right? Yeah. Life's hard. Life can be messy. Farm life's messy at times. You're working with family, at least in our situation, working with family and working through relationships and just going out and grinding every day, getting the harvest in. And it's just a lot of long, hard days. And it's similar to your business. Business is business.
Right.
But
no, my business, I don't actually produce anything of value. My business, right. My business is the exact, like yours, you're like, okay, at the end of the day, here's a pork chop. Your pork is amazing, by the way. Absolutely the best thing I've ever had in my life. I was like, this is, when you told me when we first met and we did our podcast and you're like, I will take a pork chop over a steak any day. I was like, come on, bro. And then I got some of your product. I was like, oh yeah.
No, it is. And so it's really rewarding. Especially doing what we do and working direct with the customer. For me, I love that interaction. I love hearing what you just said because that's the reward.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of farmers that are removed from that direct marketing, they don't get to hear it from the customer. They don't get that joy back of the product they created. They don't get to see the end result. And so that's the huge thing of why we do what we do is we get to provide a really good product for the community, and then we get to hear it from them. And so that you're taking that risk on, right? You do get the feedback, and sometimes maybe it wasn't the best experience for someone. And so you work on your craft and you change, but our kids get to see that. We get to go through that. And sometimes, that gives you some anxiety dealing with hard situations. And you just grind, it out. And, it's not always the best day. But there's some really, really good days. And so, you go through it. Kids learn a lot, and some kids really love it and some kids really don't, but that's personality, right? There's just some that don't want to come back, and there's some that's all they're going to do. So
what do you think is the difference between those kids? Like with a kid that just loves farm life, or the cliche of like, I have to get off the farm, I have to go see the world. And then you get a dose of that, and you're like, I got to get back there. Like, this place sucks.
I was one of those kids. When I first went to college, I actually started in landscape. I was going to go into landscape, and then later on I was like, actually, I want to be a dentist. I went and tried that, and I was like, nope, that's not for me. Did an internship, and I was like, nope, not for me. And I tried a few other things, and it just kept coming back. Like, my dad had created this wonderful business, this farm. I was trying to run from it, and I realized all those other things were hobbies, and my love was in agriculture. And I didn't know what about ag I loved until I really got into soil health and understanding soil and soil function and animals. And then I figured out what my passion was. My passion was that, and then from that I can create a healthy product. And so it finally connected of what I was there for and what I was meant to do and what to create. And so once I understood that, then I could go 100%. So I think, what is it about the kids? I think they haven't figured out the connection of their purpose, and not everyone can be a farmer, personality wise or whatever. And we can't all be that. I mean, there's a ton of different industries that need people, but my greatest hope is that one of my kids wants to keep participating in what we're doing when we're gone, because it is my passion, and hopefully the way I raise them, I'm not driving them from that. Hopefully I'm creating an environment for them to desire to come back.
Man, check this out. So my dad's a physician. Okay. And he went to Vietnam right after high school. He flew helicopters. He survived. He came back. He immediately started going to junior college. He took 4 years in junior college because he had a very rough home life through his upbringing. And so he was not a great student in high school. So goes to 4 years of junior college, then goes to UC Davis, then goes to UCSF med school. I'm born when he's in med school. I'm the fourth kid. Okay. So like he is grinding. The man is after it. He believed in what he was doing though. Like his origin of coming to believe that he wanted to be a physician and help people and save people's lives has origins in his time in Vietnam. And so he dearly loved it. So he goes to medical school, goes to internship, residency, the whole thing, becomes a doctor. And from the time I can remember, he would pull me aside and be like, hey, I just want you to know. I was like, what? Am I in trouble? He's like, you're not in trouble. I was like, okay, well, what's going on? He's like, I just want you to know, out of all my kids, you'd be the best doctor. I was like, really? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, you know how you love Legos? I'm like a little kid, right? He's like, you know how you love Legos? I'm like, oh, I love Legos. Yeah. Like I had some stupid hydraulic forklift Lego thing that I built, right? He's like, you know how you love Legos? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you could be an orthopedic surgeon. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that somebody who fixes braces? And he's like, nope, that's an orthodontist. He's like, orthopedic surgeon. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, oh, you put people's bones together. I'm like, oh, doesn't sound fun, but whatever. And so I like go through life, I go into college as a math major, love science and math. And then I switched to rhetoric, which he's hugely offended by because he's like, what the heck are you going to do? And I graduated and I'm fine in life. And I tell my siblings later when I was like 24 or something, I'm like, well, Dad always thought I'd be the best doctor. And my sister laughed at me. He's like, he told all of us that. He even told my brother-in-law. Okay, now my brother-in-law, when my dad meets my brother-in-law, he's graduating from UC Davis with an engineering degree and going in to get his master's in engineering, which he goes and does. He's got a master's in like mechanical engineering, I think. He's working for Boeing. Okay, he gets a job working for Boeing right out of getting his master's. And he tells my brother-in-law, he's like, Randy, out of all my kids, Randy's like, Mike, I'm an engineer. Yeah. I feel your dad. I feel your pain of like, I hope one of my kids comes back, but my dad shot and missed, man. None of us became doctors.
It's definitely, I mean, luckily through ours, I'm fourth generation, so it's worked out. Yeah. And if it wasn't for the men and women in my past, it's really difficult to start a farm. It's really expensive land and all the things that go into it. So it's a credit to the past that we're able to do what we can do, and hopefully that will pass on. And if not, hopefully there's someone that close by that we can mentor up and keep it going.
Yeah. So if you're fourth generation, is it the same plot of land that you've been engaged on? Oh my gosh, dude, this is like Yellowstone.
Yeah.
So lit. Do you guys have like the house and then the kids' house and stuff?
Yeah. So the original farmhouse is what we live in. It was in front of my brother's house, and it's been moved over close to where the store is. And so the house my dad was born in, actually the day my dad was born, they moved into the new house.
Your grandparents did.
Yep. And then I was born in that house. And then my brother Ben, they live in that house, so their kids were born there. And then we actually live in the original house that sat in front, and it's been remodeled and expanded. But yeah, they're all still there. So we have the original, I can't remember, 100 and some acres right there, and then we've expanded it, from that point. But yeah, we're still in that original plot of land.
I find it incredibly interesting that I meet so many multi-generational people, business people here, not just in ag, right? Like I've met plenty of those. I had Lazy SP Farms in here. She does raw milk dairy, and her grandfather had essentially saved their pantry, their dairy, and the building was still there, and they had gotten out of it. They had gotten into different ag things, and then she came back to it, and she still had like the gold lined, milk containers. Cool. Yeah, which is super awesome. And all the equipment that her grandfather had left for her still worked, right? Like the pumping machines and everything. So they got it all fixed up, and she, delivers a raw product. But that type of multi-generation business just did not exist in California. Like you look at Zamzows. I think they're on sixth generation. Yeah. I met a gal at the YMCA who does the printing, or used to do the printing for the Idaho ballots, right? That's like a 90-year business, and they've been, again, multi-generation. Yeah. Like, what is it about this area? Do you have any inclination about what it is about this area that drives that kind of thing? Because again, I did not experience that. And I don't know if it's that's because California is such a transient area. Like, for instance, the average person in California moves every 3.5 years.
Oh, really? That's
right.
Crazy.
Right. So like you think about that, you're like, ain't no way that somebody's sticking around like for an 80-year business if you're moving every 3.5 years.
And I would say there's probably parts of California that way. But a lot of this area, when people were moving here, they moved a long ways. Once they got here, like, oh, this is home. Yeah. We're going to stay. And so I don't know the whole reason why Idaho is this way. I know you go out east and there's a lot of farms that are, 8, 9 generations. And so I don't know if it's just Idaho, but I think it's definitely like something you can hang your hat on. Like it's impressive that you can keep it going. And that's like something that wears on me. Like, am I going to, can I hold on to all this, and don't ruin it? Yeah. But,
don't ruin it. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's the nature of the means of production, right? So for instance, a lot of people I know from the town I moved from, they were like in sales or like, CEO of something or whatever it is, but there was no geographic necessity. Right. A lot of them, some of them moved, when COVID hit, some of them just moved and kept working. And they're like, there's nothing tying me to this land. Right. Whereas what you're doing is necessarily geographically based. And the more you take care of the earth and the better you do with it, and the more you purchase around you, the better means of production you really have.
Yeah. And it's very difficult to move a farm. Right. Right. It's hard to move that kind of industry. So you're going to try to keep it going where you're at. And I can see the same thing in like a printing business. Like that success is really driven by who you're working for, right? Yeah. You just don't go move and start printing because there's already the other business there.
Yeah. You ever read Lonesome Dove?
I haven't, no.
Dude, they move cattle. It's just the Hat Creek Cattle Company down in Texas, right? Okay. Right at the Texas-Mexico border. Yep. And they do the whole point of the book is that they do this cattle drive that are all the way up north into Montana. And like people are dying along the way. It's just there's some storm where everything's like wind blown and just you're running everywhere. Somebody gets kidnapped by, Blue Duck, this like villainous Native American, like all of these things. You're like, wow, man, that's moving a cattle company.
Well, they had to do that, right? They followed the grass, and they'd drive the herds, and then they would drive them back, and That's why the stockyards were so big.
Yeah.
Is it bring these massive herds down in a full on drive and bring them right into the market and sell them. That's how it was. A lot of the steers back then, they were 3 years old plus because they're on this drive the whole time, and they're finally finished as they're older. They didn't have grains that they're eating, right? So that was part of that process.
How old are your steer?
We're butchering in that 24 to 26 months. So a little over 2 years.
So it just took longer for them to actually get them because they're actually moving the entire time.
They're following that grass, and so it was they go all the way up and back, and then they're finally of age, but they didn't have to. When the grass was done, they're moving on just like the natural herds were, and just following where the grass is available.
We were talking about kids coming back to it. What was your first step in getting back into this, right? Like you had a bunch of different kind of pseudo jobs and found your way back to the farm, but how do you integrate back into that in a meaningful way to the point where you eventually take it over? Was it like, did you have to get run through all of the different jobs, or had you done those as kids and you're just like, all right, look, let me just do this and like, I'll do it and don't worry?
Yeah. I think when I came back, me and my brother, Ben, we had our own like little farm. And my dad and uncle were together. And so, we're sitting here working off the side. We're using their equipment to kind of run our farm. And luckily we had that available to us. And then there was an opportunity for my uncle to move down to Mountain Home and help a dairy farm. And so that was an opportunity for Dad and his brother to split because he had a boy too, Cody, that wanted to go and farm with him. And so they went that direction and we stayed in this area. And so we were able to stay on the home farm. And at that point, that's when Dad, was able to bring us back in and together. And so we kind of worked as three as one, like we were all, CEO, I guess, together. It's only been recently that we started like, kind of separating who's over what. And, it's kind of hard to have three
captains. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've kind of separated that, and really we kind of separated as what our strengths are. And Dad's trying to retire. And so he's just like, yeah, boys, keep
producing.
Do you. And he's been really good to champion us along the way. He's a great father that way. I meet a lot of guys that can't ever try new things because their dad's holding them back. No, this is the way, we always done it. Don't mess with it. And Dad's really good about, hey, try it. Let's see what happens. And so as we tried no-till and the soil health movement and not tilling the land, integrating animals, adding all those things, as I've come up with my crazy ideas, my dad's just giving us a thumbs up, try it. Let's see what happens. And he's just been really good that way. So I never had to I had to prove myself, but not like he was just so open to change, which was really nice to have a father that way that would allow it. And most guys don't have that experience. It can be really hard when they're trying to transition a family. And I think that's what's helped us be successful is he's been willing to let us try our hand at stuff.
What you touched on, I actually wanted to ask you about today. The American public in general has been sold on a lot of, I remember talking to my dad about I think it was like the 50s housewives were taking some form of methamphetamine during the day and then like sleeping pills at night because, and again, better living through chemistry, right? All of a sudden that we had this mass industry that was producing things like, you will feel a lot better if you take this. It's like, great. And then, like you're up and you're down. And those were some classic examples of just trying to improve your life through pharmaceuticals. And there has been a movement of, integrating science and using the hammer of that stuff in a lot of areas of life, right? Like I think most people understand that by this point. And there has been a reaction to that as of late, which is, hey man, let me just give it a shot the way I am, right? Like the number of people that I know that are on TRT that I like train jujitsu with or do whatever. They're like, oh bro, it's great. I'm like, I'm gonna just stay on the natch. I'm gonna do, 6 to 8 hours of sleep and try to eat real good. And I'm 42 and I'm okay, right? I don't even have heartburn. Like it's all good. that is a popular movement in American culture now, coming back to, hey, look, can we just do things normally?
Yep.
TRT, aside, because everybody likes that.
Yeah.
Do you think that the movement in agriculture back towards, hey, let's get away from monocrop, let's get away from, synthetic fertilizers, let's get back to sustainability, what drove that? Was that farmers looking at their own industry and saying, hey, something's up here, like this can't be right? Or was it driven by people saying, hey, we want a more natural existence, and that starts with our food? Or was it both?
I think it's a percentage of both, for sure. Because I do have the true belief that food can be medicine. That's what it should be. I think that's what it was created for, is to be medicine for ourselves. And so I appreciate, I think the natural is the way to go. We don't need drugs to fix everything. In a way, the drugs, the pharmaceutical world is there fixing the symptoms of the problems, right? There's a bigger problem at hand when you're doing it. So you're taking a pill to fix the symptom, and it rarely fixes the problem. And I think that's the same thing in agriculture. We use the synthetic fertilizers, we use the sprays, we use certain tillages to fix symptoms, when overall there was a soil health problem. And so it's like, oh, the plants aren't growing, let's feed them. And so how do we find the balance? And back in my grandparents' time, they used rotation, right? There was the animals, the rotation of crops. They didn't have the synthetic fertilizers, the sprays to fix those symptoms. And so they had to use proper rotation. They had to use rest, all these things to get a healthy crop. And when the fertilizer came and a salesman shows up at your door and says, hey, this bag of fertilizer replaces X amount of loads of fertilizer spread on the field, and they had to shovel all that, they're going to be like, oh, I'll take that. I mean, why not?
Sounds great.
Yeah. It's like,
or you can
you
can just add this fertilizer, and that'll save you a year of, earth resting.
Yeah. And so I can't blame the movement that we went on, right? It's like, oh, how do we get better sleep? How do we, all those things. It's
right.
I can understand the movement, but we just didn't understand the problems that would come from, environmental problems and quality of food, all those things. So not being able to see the future and understand what's happening in the soil and what's happening to animals and all those things, I can understand and appreciate that they went the direction they did. A way of life, easier. Why not? Let's improve it. We can farm more acres, maybe help, the bottom line for the family. So I understand that. And so I think the consumer is driving, going back to your question, I think the consumer is driving some of that, the organic food movement. We want better for our kids. How do we know that it's better for our kids? And that's the organic food movement. Like, we can trust it. Which some of it, there's cheaters in every industry.
Wait, back up. What are you talking about? Like somebody who just slaps the organic tag on, or markets something as...
Yeah, they try to get away.
Yeah.
Do things under the table. You get grains in from foreign countries.
Sure.
That are hot, and it's like, there's just too many big players in it to fully trust. And there's guys that are trying to do the good job that get some of those grains in, right? That don't realize they're not organic.
Right.
So it's really hard to trust. And that's where we like to go back to understand, knowing your farmer. Come out and vet me and look at my practices, look at what we're doing. You can come to our farm any time of the day and just check it out. Look at what's going on. And I think we've lost that as an American in the world. It's, I think, worse in America is, do you understand who raised that food? How many miles did it take to get to you? And what are the practices and what are they focused on? I think that's the most important thing that a consumer should be looking at. And then they can establish that relationship. I can trust them as my customer. They can trust me as their farmer and build that relationship. And I think that's what's important. As we focused on soil health, then we started understanding what it takes to build healthy soil. And, you have to get rid of all the sides, pesticides, herbicides, tillage, fungicides. All of that hurts. I guess it's all of a disruption to microbiology. And so if we understand that it's all a disruption, we need to limit all those disruptions as much as possible to grow that. Now, there's always going to be some disruptions, right? It's never a perfect. It's even in nature, there's, tillage, there's animals, there's always something. We just need to limit it as much as possible to then be able to get the biology to keep the soil life rotating. And in the end, if it's healthy soil, it's going to build healthy plants, which build healthy animals and then healthy humans. And so understanding it, now you have to do something with the knowledge and do better. And that's kind of where we're at, is like, we understand it. We have a consumer that's saying, hey, I want soy-free, I want all these things. And so we're listening to them on that side too. And we also know we have this knowledge on the other side that we know we need to do it a certain way. And so we follow that.
Are you concerned at all about the kind of coming to terms with, like, rapeseed oil, canola oil, right? Seed oils and things like, somebody was saying the other day, because I've been doing a lot of work with Fair Idaho, meeting with different ag people. I have the cattleman VP coming in soon. Just a lot of people, because it's like, this is, and again, I erroneously mentioned you in a hot piece of internet nonsense about cloud seeding and different production, different water issues. Because water issues, from my understanding, which is limited because I'm an idiot, like, if we lose the water, right, or if we have a decrease in water, if we have water irregularity year by year, we're gonna just damage the base economic engine of our state, which is agriculture, right? And not just, okay, we had a lot of water this year and no water the next year. I mean, that'll create volatility. You're gonna have people that go out of business. We can't store it properly. All of these problems, right? And I posted, there was a guy that responded. He's like, well, then, we're probably in for it anyway when the sugar beet industry and the rapeseed industry gets, axed because people realize these things aren't good for them. My thought on that was kind of like, okay, but I think farmers are resilient and capable enough of, if this crop goes out of fad or becomes less desirable, they'll be able to pivot to something else. Is that like a reasonable assumption, or do we have a large industry that's just like, no, like, this is, I only grow sugar beets and that's all I'll ever be able to grow and that's it? I
mean, if you don't have a healthy, diverse rotation, if those fads change, I mean, you're at risk, right? And that's the reason we do what we do, is we try to have diversity in what we do. We don't, I mean, they call it death by diversity in business too. So there's a fine line of having too much diversity, but it's the reason we do what we do, because there's always the risk of a crop, falling out of favor.
Does that have like a rich history? And like, what crop did we used to be hard? Like, cause we used to not care about kale. Now we care about kale.
Right.
It's trash. Like, okay. So Mike Tyson, it's like Joe Rogan 5-6 years ago. And he was talking about how he was trying to eat really healthy and he was eating kale. And he's like, it's poison. Yeah. And Rogan's like, what do you mean? He's like, poisonous. Yeah. And I really hope Mike Tyson doesn't get me for that. Anyway, but I was like, what is he even trying to say? So I went through the hot minute. Okay. I used to do green smoothies every morning, and I put like bananas and strawberries, blueberries, all this stuff. And then kale, Swiss chard, and spinach into it, right? Green smoothie, and chug it down. I felt so healthy. And I go through this phase where I'm like, I'm going to try like the keto diet just for fun. I wasn't even trying to lose weight. It was like 182 pounds. I'm like, whatever, give it a shot. Mix it up in life. And so in my smoothies that I was doing, I was like, well, I got to take out all this fruit. So I just started blending. It was so terrible. I started blending the kale, Swiss chard, and spinach with water every morning. I would blend it and I would pour. Oh, did you? So I blended. I poured into a cup and I would proceed to choke this stuff down. And when I tell you it burned like I was dying. Like I was like, and it would hit my gut and I would just be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And of course, being the idiot I am, I'm like, well, the worse it hurts, probably the better it is for me. So like, chunk down more. I got to the point, I'm not joking you, like 2 weeks later, here I was like a ravenous athlete. I couldn't even train for half an hour. Like I would crawl into the corner of the gym, just like, oh. And, since then you realize like, kale has biodefenses. Like kale is not looking to be eaten by anything. There's a reason this stuff tastes bad. Like ain't nobody ever got sick off butter lettuce. Yeah, like, that's right. The kale industry used to be the thing of garnish that they would put in between the trays of buffets. And now, yeah, right. Yeah. And now everybody's like, oh, eat the dinosaur kale. It's incredible for you. It's like, no, thank you. You can have it. So like, I understand kale has come into favor. Are there classic examples kind of in American farm history of crops falling out of favor?
Nothing comes to mind. I mean,
it's just a risk.
I think it's a risk. I mean, when you look at like GMO sugar beets, it created an easier way of life for the American sugar beet farmer. I mean, raising sugar beets was really tough because there wasn't very many herbicides for them. They're planting them when it's at risk of frost, so they're done in time in the fall. And so it's really difficult to farm the sugar beet without the
GMO
Roundup
product. Oh, without the Roundup.
Yeah, the gotcha. GMO product inside the sugar beet. But I guess the opposite side that I kind of look at it is if it was still hard, less people are going to be able to do it. It took a really good farmer to raise a sugar beet and get it to market and keep the weeds out of it and get it done, right? It took a lot, and it took a lot of labor too. But so not as many people could do it. Yields would probably be a little bit lower, but does that make sugar worth more? It's the question I pose. Like, if it's not as easy to do, you're not going to have as many sugar beets. Is there less sugar? And then that's going to balance out and you're going to get paid more instead of having an overabundance of the sugar beet, so right. Sugar beet industry does a pretty good job of regulating acres, and keeping that balance down. Right. So yeah, it made it easier, but is it all the way necessary? Because maybe it makes the product worth more if you didn't have it. I don't know. I don't like to play in that, and that industry can figure out what it's going to do. Sure. It also, pushed more sugar onto everyone. I don't know.
But like whether it's sugar beet sugar, cane sugar,
they're gonna figure it out.
High fructose corn, like there's no stopping the sugar industry at large. Like I'm not vilifying a sugar beet farmer. Like that guy's just trying to make a guy or gal's like, look, man, I'm out there like 16 hours a day just trying to grow a plant and sell the plant. But the sugar industry in general is like they will not be stopped. But
I mean, in like the canola market, rapeseed, stopping the American public from eating at, fast food restaurants, and
they're not going to do that.
The chance is low, right? I think there's better option for oilseed crops than that. From what I understand is it was an easier oil to stabilize into like margarines and stuff. And that's why it went the way it did. So it's made itself into agriculture. They use the meal in cattle feeds all the time. It's made its way into a lot of things, but I think there's more responsible ways to use it maybe, than pumping it into everything. But
yeah, sure.
I mean, the guys in Canada raising a bunch of it, it's what the market is, right? If there was no market for it, they're gonna find something else. Right. And so,
you have the ability to farm, you have the ability to work the earth. You're going to find a product that works for you.
Every day you vote with your dollar.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's what the American public needs to realize. If they're going to McDonald's, if they're supporting a business, it tells the business do more.
Right.
And if we don't understand that, if you're mad at Amazon for ruining the local business, then quit spending money at Amazon. So I think that's what we've got to realize is where you spend your money matters.
We are always voting with our dollar. Do you remember the hatred that Starbucks experienced when it exploded?
Yeah.
Do you remember like people had shirts and hats that were like friends don't let friends drink Starbucks? And like South Park did that great bit on they called it Harbucks, right?
Yeah.
It was like Harbucks moved into South Park and everybody like flipped out, but the local coffee was, not palatable. It's just really, really bad. And again, it's like, listen, what do you want me to do? You're like, you have to improve your coffee if you want people to buy your coffee. This is just an option that apparently works consistently, and God bless it, man. Like, and people can do it. It's not like In-N-Out has a spot.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you think that McDonald's hamburgers are terrible and like, look, McDonald's is just not the freshest, most incredible, like they taste really good, but they're really bad for you. Right. The Big Mac. I haven't had a Big Mac in like 10 years. Oh my
Takes you
God.
back to
Oh my God. To like my teen year. Oh my God. With the bun, with the double bun. The thing that got me when I realized, I was like, they just put an extra piece of like sugary bread in the middle.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Like the special sauce. The Big Mac, but the Whopper, honestly, like I was well into my 30s before I stopped eating Whoppers. Every time I would go to an airport, I just always hit up a Whopper. Oh my God, they're so good.
Yeah.
They're just nice and flat. It was like the original smash burger.
Yeah.
It was just, oh, God bless it. So bottom line is you feel like there's enough flexibility, like people will be able to make it happen.
Yeah. Is it going to be hard on families? Is it going to be hard on farms? Yeah. I mean, all of that is hard, right? We have the similar problems when commodities drop too. I mean, we used to be really heavy into custom haying, and when
what?
Haying, like, so we'd bale hay for other farmers. We had a lot of alfalfa ourselves. And so when that market drops really low, well, you got to take a bunch of acres out. So what do you transition to? And so as the American farmer has to be really, I guess, versatile and willing to change. And if not, if you're just like, no, I'm going to keep raising hay and there's no money in it, I mean, what are you going to do? And so we have to go with the market wherever it is. And so we try to have that diversity on our farm with the animals and with seed crops and all these different things to try as markets change, that we can try to be a little more flexible into other things. And
yeah, man, talk about flexibility. You have turkeys, right?
Yep.
For Thanksgiving.
Yep.
God bless it. Do you, okay, talk to me about these birds. Cause are you raising them year round and just waiting for that? Like, do you start with like 10,000 turkey chicks or something? And
yeah, so we actually get them in June.
Oh, okay.
And then we just raise them through the summer. So locally, we don't have a USDA processor that will do like turkey grind.
Okay.
And some of the other cuts that, well, I guess the processing that will allow us to sell it year round. Turkey's one of those things that just, if it's not grind or like lunch meat, it's really just a holiday type bird.
Or Disneyland.
Or Disneyland.
Or Disney
drumsticks.
Those turkey legs.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, they were $2. Now
really?
they're like $15 each.
That's
and
crazy.
damn, they're good, but like that's a lot of money for a turkey leg.
Yeah, it is. And so you have some random deals like that. And so since we don't have a capability yet to do turkey grind, we just shoot for the holiday bird. And so we raise them. We get them in June. They're 3-4 weeks in the brooder. And then we take them out to pasture and talk about the grind. It's that daily grind, moving them to fresh, keeping their feet on them, making sure they're not, getting into trouble. They like to follow you around. Like they're like the dog of the poultry world. So, but they're a fun bird. They really like interaction.
Yeah.
And so they'll greet you at the gate and they'll follow you wherever you go. So you got to be careful when you're moving them so you don't hurt them, because they're always just trying to pile up where you're at.
Wait, your flock of turkeys follows you around like puppy dogs.
Yeah. Portion, not every single bird, but when you come to the gate, you'll have a group meet you and then.
And they just want to walk around with you. They're not even directly looking for feed. They're just like, oh, Brad's here.
Yeah.
Like, Brad.
Yeah. I think if they could talk. Yeah. So when we get them as babies, they just like interaction. And so they're always looking at you like, what should I do? So the first couple of days, you spend a lot of time in the brooder, showing them water, showing them feed, messing, they need that social interaction to like help them eat, help them drink. And so you establish that with them when they're little, and then they just, that's what they're herding. You can herd turkeys.
Dude, you are making me want to get a turkey farm right now.
Yeah.
This is wait, how many turkeys do you hang out with in the brooder to like help them learn how to drink?
So this year we did 500.
You hung out for like a week with 500 turkeys. You're like, come here, little turkey. Like, let me feed you out of my hand. Like, this is where the food comes from, buddy. Here, get some water.
Luckily, we have good people on the farm that we all get to take turns, right? We don't we don't spend all the time one person, but yeah, it's that you just have to build that social, and then once they learn it, then they're good. They can get to water and get to feed, and they're fine. But some of them just want to die. They just, if you don't help them, they're gonna, not know what to do. That's what their mother did, right? Is show them how to eat, show them where to drink. And, the chicken's a little bit different. They're so driven by food that they will find the food. Yeah, they'll figure it out, and they go to the water pretty easy, but turkey just needs a little more nurturing to get that done.
We have that holiday book, Turkey Trouble, where he's like trying to pretend he's a pig, and then he's trying to pretend he's a cow or a horse, and then he finally pretends he's a pizza delivery guy.
Nice.
Delivers a pizza. Yeah. And like we do this, we anthropomorphize animals, but you're doing a great sales pitch for turkeys. So is there any value, would there be any value for you guys keeping a turkey throughout the year, and then that turkey could train the other turkeys in June?
I mean, I've never, one thing some of the industry does is they mix the turkeys with the chickens at the same age, because that chicken is more driven to food and water, and so then they kind of teach them more. We've had the idea of like putting a mother hen in and seeing, but I just don't know if they're not used to it. It's like, oh, we do that with cattle though. We have, if anybody comes to the farm and they see our heifer group or our steer group, we have 2 steers that are Watusis, huge horns, just really big horns. And we use them because they know the system. They know where they're walking all the time, where we're moving them from pasture to pasture. And so when we show up, we call it, they're the leader of the group, and they will be down ready to move into the next paddock. They know the drill.
Yeah.
And so when young ones come in, it's like, oh, we got our leader, and so that's how we keep them. And so it works really good that way. I don't know, in poultry industry, maybe it would work.
That's so cool, man. How big do I know your chickens, by the way, when we started getting your stuff, I was like, I have never had a chicken like this. And you in our first conversation, you definitely said like, well, we work harder to get more fats on the animal. It does take us longer to get them to maturity and to harvest, but it creates a better product. And I was listening to you. I was like, yeah, like probably, yeah. And then I started cooking your food. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best. And the chickens in particular, I'm like, I have never, ever had a chicken like this. And we eat a lot of chicken. So it was like, this is incredibly tasty. Do you do that same thing with your turkeys? Like, because turkeys, they're notoriously like, it's just a little dry. It's like that scene from National Lampoons when he like cuts the turkey and
green comes out or
No, that was the Jello.
Yeah.
Was it the Jello?
Yeah.
The aunt Bethel.
Oh yeah, Bethel. Right.
Bethany. Yeah. There it is, Bethany.
Yeah.
The blessing.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like, so do you guys do that because or do something similar with increasing the fat content of the meat for turkeys?
Yeah, it's a slower grow.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we're on pasture, we're doing the move. The feed is not pushing them as hard. And so, yeah, we're trying to get them as close to Thanksgiving as possible and have them finished. And so we're looking at them too. We're trying to weigh them and making sure they're hitting the ideal weight, because not everyone can have a really big turkey. And like this year, we're always trying to like weigh them and estimating what they're going to weigh, on the Thanksgiving plate.
Sure.
But this year we got them too big. You're trying to weigh
How big are they?
Well, I mean, they're anywhere. The ones we have left are like 15 to 22 pounds.
What's wrong with that?
It's great.
That's like a perfect size.
But when you look at a smaller family, they're sometimes looking at a smaller turkey. But yeah, it's that slower growth. You get some more internal fat. and I think, it's the bugs, the grass, it just builds a juicier turkey. Yeah. I mean, it's just, anybody can screw any, meat cut up.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
But if you cook it slow, I mean, turkey's amazing when it's done right. It's really good.
I had guy Steve, who I was mentioning in earlier, who we were talking about lamb, because he's a big fan of lamb, and he grabs lamb from local providers and stuff. And we were talking about all the different lamb things. He was like lamb burgers and, obviously lamb chops and rack lamb. I'm dying. Like, he's going to come back and do like we're going to do a lamb show. It's going to be incredible. Oh, nice. But like everybody I'm talking to today is talking about incredible food. Like,
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. The turkey, man, that's one we've done. My wife and I, there was something weird. You may have not experienced this, but there is a weird cultural shift in when we were coming up in our early 20s, where it was almost like our grandparents were real strong with traditions. And then my parents just kind of like my dad doesn't, but like my dad was living in Alaska when I was in my 20s. But my mom was just didn't want to do Thanksgiving. Like, my grandmother did it. And then when my grandmother stopped doing it, we started doing it. So we're like, I've been trying to get better at turkeys for a while, but you guys just, again, don't have them year round. It's really just a seasonal product.
Yeah. Thanksgiving mainly. And then there's a few that hold over for Christmas. There's a few people that don't do turkeys. They do it at Christmas. And so, I mean, our favorite way is we actually, spatchcock them. So we actually cut the backbone out and we'll break them down. And so they lay flat on the grill, Traeger, whatever you got. And so it cooks super even. So you still, we'll, brine them, we do the whole thing. We'll cut the backbone out, break them down. And so it just cooks really even. It actually cooks a little faster. You're not dealing with that cavity air. Yeah.
That sounds so
smoked.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's really good.
Are you a Traeger guy?
That's what I have. Yeah.
My buddy just made this product called the Woolly Bully. So he has the old school Weber kettle, and like, Traeger's great. I think Traeger's awesome and people really enjoy it. But having the old, what is that noise? Oh, that's you. Yeah. You got to take that.
Nope.
Oh, you sure?
No,
I was like, is it the aliens? Are they coming?
What is there's like, I was like, that's coming through the mic. What
yeah,
is
right. I thought you hit your mic stand or something. Okay, cool.
So doesn't go through.
Yeah. But my buddy Max, he's a master, like smoking. That's he's awesome. Like brisket, rib, the whole thing, right? Anything. But he uses the Weber kettle, and he gets really specific with it. So he has, on a key ring, a series of wooden dowels of varying sizes. So he knows how to open and close the grates on the top of the kettle.
Oh man.
But he also recognized that the green egg, that's like, $5,000.
It's a lot.
Took over a portion of that market where somebody wanted briquettes and they wanted to do that thing, but they're like, oh, well, this is insulated. And, so he made this product, which is epic. So it's a top cap on you take a Weber kettle, and essentially it's like all of these different mergings of fabrics that just sits on top. It's like a cover that goes on top. So you can touch it, like you don't burn yourself, like nobody bumps into the kettle and gets hurt, but it also insulates it. So you can get it up really, really hot. And he has been perfecting different meats forever. And I want to get one of those and because he just came out with them. I want to get one and just start doing all kinds of like ribs and whatnot. Do you do lambs?
We don't have any lamb. No.
You don't have even, like, Mary doesn't even have a little?
No little lamb at all.
No.
Yeah. We've stayed away from goat and lamb. There's really good producers in the area. They're a harder one to tackle on profitability because the
New Zealand and Australian lamb market.
Yeah. I mean, there is some demand locally for it. It's the kill fee, USDA kill fee, and once you add the butchering cost, the price goes way up. Since we're USDA, we have to be USDA certified and all that, and so price just goes up. So as a family, we've talked about it, but we just are really trying to perfect our craft on the animals that we have. We got a bunch of different ones really quick, so it's like, let's get the best we can at the chicken, eggs, turkey, beef, pork.
Don't go for too many products.
Yeah, and it's that death by diversity type thing. Let's get really good at that, and then we can start expanding, or we can bring in, other producers if we wanted to and help sell it. It's just the cost gets pretty high on such a small animal.
Yeah.
When you look at that kill fee and the processing.
Man, but your eggs are so good.
Thanks.
Oh my God, I eat them every day.
Yeah.
Like it's you should see the number of crates we have. Well, I mean, because you guys deliver them, but it's like we get like 10 dozen eggs every time we get an order, and I just go out to the box in the morning. I'm like, God bless it. The carcass
shows right up. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's the best. And you go in, it's like, what came today in the mail? It's awesome. So you have turkey. Are there any other seasonal things that you guys are stocking up for or gearing up with?
Yeah, we do a French roast for pork, a French cut one.
That's with like the
bone.
Yeah.
Oh, so
awesome.
we have that, and then prime rib and loin. We keep the whole loin roast. And so depending on
what you're
different cultures and stuff,
yeah.
they have they're different. But those are the ones we have for the holidays, and I think those just hit the website. She hasn't done any social media on them, but that'll be coming out. So yeah, turkeys. And then those 3 cuts, and that's typically, we just keep the prime ribs throughout, this last fall for the holidays. And then we don't have any prime rib roasts, after the holidays. Oh. And we just do, steaks and stuff out of it at the other times of the year. And so we just keep them for that.
And so the pork one is called a French roast?
Yeah, like a French cut roast. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when it's just the big roast with a little tiny bone sticking out the top.
Like the loin, yeah.
Dude, I am so hungry now. This is just. I remember making one of those a couple of years ago. I didn't know it was called the French cut. Yeah,
that's what that's what we call it. Yeah.
What is it about those little tiny bones on like a rack of lamb or like that piece, or the tomahawk steaks?
Yeah.
Like everybody likes a bone. And when I was 22, I remember going to this open air market with a buddy of mine. It was in Alameda. And really nice market, and it was awesome. It was like, cool, great. And we go by the meat section. They had this bone in. Now I realize it was like a tomahawk steak. I didn't know that, but it was like this big. Oh my God. And I went home and made it, man. I did rock salt and olive oil on top of that bad boy, soaked it in rock salt and olive oil, and then cooked it. I had a Betty Crocker mobile oven because I was living in somebody's garage. I didn't know it was a garage at the time, but it was like the first place I lived after college. And I was like, I do not want to live with like the bro life and like go have that much room. So I was like, I need a cottage. Like that's what I need. So I started going on Craigslist. I'm like, I gotta find a cottage. So I find this cottage in Kensington, which is like this bougie little suburb near Berkeley. And so I go see this cottage, and it's this backyard cottage. I'm like, oh, like a cottage, awesome. And it has 2 burner stove. Okay, it has a mini fridge. Doesn't have a proper fridge. It has like a tiny little sink. But it had a shower, it had a bathroom, the bed was lofted. And what that means is like, what I come to find out later is somebody's like, you live in a garage, you know that, right? Yeah. I'm like, no, I don't. This is an apartment. They're like, bro, it's a garage. And I stepped out and was like, I live in a garage. Because they had converted half the garage to storage. And then lofted the ceiling. So they had like 7-foot ceilings of the storage. And then on top of that, that's where my bed was. And so I had to scamper up this ladder and from the top of the ceiling to whatever was like 3.5 feet. So I'd like crawl over to my bed and pass out. And my grandma got me this Betty Crocker oven. That's what I made the steak on. But dude, that bone in, when you cook a piece of meat with the bone in, there is some flavor that comes out of that is just, I don't know what that is.
It's good. Yeah. Yeah. We do that. We do some like tomahawk pork chops too, and so that's not a real big bone, but then you get the tomahawk beef, and I mean you get and I Thor is a new one, they have the shank. We haven't done that one yet, but we need to get some of that in. But yeah, that's becoming popular.
Is that a function of what the processor can do? Because if you're doing fancy cuts like that are getting popularized by like the meat bros online, then you really have to go to like I did an episode with Elliot out of Northwest Premium Meat recently, and he was talking about like the ridiculous cuts. He's like, somebody asked for a Fred Flintstone cut.
Yeah.
That was all about, he's like, you take the back quarter and you like have all this nonsense and you just like take a bandsaw, and he's like, and you get that classic cartoon cut that's like this big with a center bone in it. And he's like, it's literally a portion of like 5 different cuts, and it's just, nonsense.
It's what it is. And I'm sure he gets we use him. And so I'm sure he gets all kinds of requests and craziness from us too. But yeah, you're trying to hit trends.
Yeah. Right.
Right. We're essentially, we're marketers, right? You can have an amazing product, but if you don't actively market, it doesn't get to the people.
Yeah.
You'd have the best ever. And if you're not out there pushing it, so marketing, it is key. And so, yeah, you're hitting trends and people start asking for it. And so then you start carrying it. And if the processor can do it, and he has to work within his USDA plan too.
Yeah.
So we just can't get everything. There's just certain things he can't do.
But dude, the fried Flint sounds sick.
Yeah.
I'm just excited about how it's like half the size of this table.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was telling me about it. We looked up a video and it's ridiculous. Like it's just gigantic. Anyway, Brad, listen, I know you're working overtime. Thank you for coming in.
Yep.
So we have the turkeys, obviously for Thanksgiving, 15 to 22 pounds roughly left over. You have the French cut of the pork. You have prime rib roast, or excuse me, prime rib.
Prime rib.
And then a big old loin.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else that people need to be aware of that are going to be gone soon?
You know, the turkeys tend to sell out fast. We have,
Sure.
we have, I think last we looked, about 60 left. And so they're moving fast.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think.
And you guys deliver.
We do delivery. That we don't do home delivery on the turkeys.
Okay.
We do meet people at different drops. Our home delivery guy only has so much space in his rig. And so we at this point, we haven't done home delivery, but
Gotcha.
Pick up at the farm. There's some drops in the valley where we'll meet people with those birds. But yeah, the easiest is just come out to the farm. But yeah, we do meet each other. And then, primes typically sell out pretty fast. But yeah, it's just come out, see us.
That's awesome.
Get to know your farmer. We're
Get
here.
to know your farmer.
Yeah.
God bless you, sir. Thank you for taking the time. Thanks for providing me, particularly, definitely me, and other people I don't know, but yes, I care about you. Thanks for providing the Treasure Valley with great produce, man, or just meat products, not produce. Wait, you guys don't do produce, do you?
No, we've done some sweet corn and, and some other stuff. And so as the kids come up, we'll slowly, add things that they're passionate about. But at this point, no. But proteins are our main goal.
Oh God, it's so good. The eggs, the chicken. Oh, it's the best, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.